My experience with an exorcism site at my school. Long, this is a true story, but take it with a grain of salt as it is a little over a year old. I'm posting this on a throwaway so no one at my school finds my account. Here's the context: I go to a private Catholic all-girls high school. It was founded by nuns in 1847 in a populated city, so it's a very old-fashioned building that's 5 stories high and served as a convent for nuns that taught there up until the mid-70s. Most of our furniture, desks, classrooms, chairs, etc. are dated back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries. We even have parlors. There are only 2 elevators in the school and they're not open to students. So when I was in my sophomore year, we had this sweet nun that passed away. She was very close to all the students and it really hit us hard. She had also been at my school since she attended there in the 40s, lived there, moved out, but kept coming back because she loved the school and the girls that went there. This meant that many alumni would be coming back to pay their respects and reunite with their old classmates. Me and a few of my friends were ambassadors to the school, so we were selected to help with the open casket preparations. There was a viewing in our school's chapel and then the alumni would go down in the basement where our gym was located and there would be food, drinks, and tables for them to sit and catch up. However, we kept all the food for it up on the 4th floor. More context: only floors 1 to 3 were used for classes. The 4th floor had most of our religion classes on a small side of it, but the other side was an ex-convent house the nuns used to use. On the 4th floor, there was this closet used for storage of snacks and sodas for our post-prom and some other school-held dances. We used the food up there for the funeral. Basically, after school, we stayed after to help transport the food from the 4th floor down to the basement. The women running it were members of an alumni club, specifically for mothers whose daughters attended the school. Our job was to bring up a cart, fill it with food, then take it down to the basement. At around noon, the alumni began coming in and we welcomed them. Then when we were done, we went down to the gym in the basement to talk, eat, and generally just wait around until we were needed. There were a lot of people there, not just alumni, ex-teachers, faculty, friends, husbands, children, etc. As previously stated, the school I go to has a lot of history. By 7ish at night, this was in early March, so it was already pitch black outside. Most of the attendants at the funeral had left, leaving a few students and even less mothers packing up the remaining food. This task was grueling and seemingly endless, as it involved pushing a cart full of food across the school, putting it into a small elevator that was installed in the 60s and unpacking it into the closet on the 4th floor. By the time my friends and I were finally pushing up the final cart, it had to be at least 9 p.m. We were tired and sweaty and had been in our uniforms since the morning and happy to be finished. When we reached the 4th floor, we unpacked the unconsumed food and sodas but then realized we were completely alone up there, me plus 3 other girls. Going on the 4th floor convent and 5th floor was strictly off limits during school hours, but there was almost nobody here and we knew we wouldn't get in trouble. We decided to explore for a little. It's a tradition at my school to see the 4th and 5th floors before graduating, or somewhat of a bucket list. There was a lot of stuff on the 4th floor. We came across old cubbies the nuns used to use and a framed prayer for the forgotten souls in purgatory that could have been created during medieval times. There was also an old kitchen with a dumbwaiter and everything. There were also rooms that the nuns used to live in. The bed sheets were clean and made, and there was a closed Bible sitting on the nightstand next to each bed. Keep that in mind. The 4th floor, while interesting, was not exactly what we wanted. We walked up the stairs to the 5th floor. The elevator didn't go up that far. The 5th floor was mostly used for storage, but there were still a few rooms the nuns lived out of. Lots of old stuff, basically. All of a sudden, one of my friends asked, "Where do you guys think the exorcism room is?" We were spooked at first but eventually laughed it off. See, her older sister had graduated in the previous year, when we were freshmen, and it wasn't uncommon for seniors to tell freshmen horror stories about the school. After all, an old school makes for good stories, true or not. Except, she was completely serious, told me there was an exorcism here in the 50s. I think it's up here towards the end. We were scared, but also skeptical. We also weren't about to pass up the opportunity to explore more, so we continued down the hallway. Towards the end of the hall, we peeked into a room, and I remember getting a terrifying chill down my spine. The room was significantly colder than the other rooms we'd explored. I had my school uniform sweater tied loosely around my neck, and I felt the need to put it back on, even though I was sweaty from all the labor we'd done. The room was uncharacteristically messy. There weren't any bedsheets on the bed, and there was a faded curtain next to it. The bed itself was turned at an odd angle, not fully against the wall. The Bible on the nightstand was open, with tears in the pages. The words were so faded they were unreadable, probably exposed to the air for a long time. The window on the wall had its blinds closed, although the room would have been dark anyway. It was the only room with blinds, in fact. There wasn't a desk in the room, only a chair that eerily resembled the ones we sat in during class. Most disturbing of all, the cross on the wall above the bed was turned completely upside down. "This has got to be it," my friend said with a shaky voice. She was probably the most Catholic out of all of us, holding her confirmation necklace between her fingers. "Should we pray for the poor souls?" The poor souls were the ghosts of people who died at my school. There were many, since it served as a haven for runaway slaves and injured soldiers during the Civil War. Just then, we heard a small creak from outside the room. I jumped and one of my friends gasped. She peeked out the door, down the end of the hallway, and me being a curious bitch, I followed her. At the end of the hallway was a stained glass window depicting the Last Supper. However, since it was so late, there wasn't any light coming through the window, only a little, since it was illuminated by the dim hallway lights. There was a figure, or at least what looked like one, with its back to us, facing the Jesus shrine. It was dressed in all black from literally head to toe. I would have thought it was a nun, if the nuns hadn't moved out 40 years ago. We both shrieked and sprinted down the hall, leaving the lights on, the two other girls following after us. They didn't have a clue why we were running, but we were. We flew down the stairs and once on the 4th floor, explained to the two other girls what we saw. Then, we took the empty food cart back down to the 1st floor and walked it down to the basement. We didn't tell any of the moms what we saw, there was no way they'd believe us. After all, it could have been a coat hanger and we could have been paranoid. Right? Plus, there was no way to prove there had been an exorcism in that room, it could have just been left unkempt. We swore each other to secrecy that night. Although this story might still not be over, next year, I'll have my senior retreat, where we spend the night in the school, our whole class. Maybe by then, we'll have some closure. Reoccurring dream. When I was a kid I always had weird vivid dreams. Anything you could think of I had a dream about it, from my teachers, to the playset in my apartment complex, just about anything. Then as I got older my dreams kind of just stopped. I never really remember my dreams, and if I do remember them, it's just bits and pieces. But lately, something's been happening that I just can't shake. I've been having one reoccurring dream. Every night. The dream freaks me out even when I think about it during the day, and I really can't stop thinking about it. Basically in the dream, I'm laying in bed facing the wall and I can hear breathing in my room, but I'm too afraid to turn around. So I just stare at the wall hoping it will go away. Eventually the breathing will stop and I will turn around and nothing is there. Now, this might seem like a regular type nightmare, but recently it's changed. I will hear the same breathing, and it will stop, but when I turn around to make sure it's gone, a figure will be sitting in my chair in the corner of my room just staring at me. The figure is all black, basically a shadow, and you can't see anything on him. But you can feel its gaze. And in the dream I just stare at it and eventually it just disappears. Last night though, I was staring at it so it would disappear, and it didn't. What it did was stand up and walk closer to me. It got right up to my face and I could hear and feel it breathing on my face, and then it disappeared. I'm scared to go to sleep because of this. I just want one happy dream, for once. Creepy camping experience. So, last summer my then BF now fiancé, had planned a trip to visit Hocking Hills in Ohio for a weekend to get away. We both love camping and being away from the craziness that is our lives. So we rented a really cool cabin. If you're familiar with the area, it's way set back, but it's 2 stories, full bathroom, kitchen, living room with TV, Wi-Fi, massage chairs, lol, etc., and cannot forget the hot tub. So one evening after a long day of hiking and then celebrating with drinking/eating, we decide to hop in the hot tub. It was getting dark so we decided just a quick relaxation session and then right to inside. About 5 minutes into us being in the hot tub I heard a noise. The way most of the hot tubs sit is facing the woods. Like 3 sides are woods, then one side faces the cabin you stay in. So I heard a crack of a branch. And to my man I kind of froze and looked at him. He laughed a little and said, "Oh, must be a small animal." I let it go. But very shortly after, these noises started to get closer. And whatever it was started to make a weird crying noise. Kind of sounded like a dying coyote mixed with snarling dog. It was so weird. It was far away at first. Then it got closer, and closer. The only reason I knew I should worry was because my guy was not okay about it. Usually he's relaxed, cool, calm and collected. It sounded like it went from the ground far away, to being high up in a tree, and right the fuck behind us on the ground. Whatever it was snapped a branch right behind my right side. The door to inside was just 3 feet away from the hot tub. So my guy looked at me and quietly said, "Get the fuck inside." I know we were far set back in the woods. It's Hocking Hills. We're close enough to Athens to maybe run across bobcats. But it was so strange and odd. It was like whatever it was smarter than us and tried to sneak up on us. I'm sure it was an animal of some sort. But that was the first and only time that my fiancé has said that's the only phenomenon that I cannot rationally explain. It genuinely scared the absolute fuck out of him. Mostly just because of the sounds. We both grew up in rural areas for part of our lives and I lived on a rural farm for a few years. And none of these noises were natural to either of us. If anyone has any opinions on what that creature could be, please let me know. The next day we had to check out. So as he was doing so, I decided to explore the little river that was about half a mile away from the checkout center. I videoed all of it because it was beautiful. But as I got closer to the water there was a bark/growl that came from underneath the rocky area. I immediately booked it because yeah, it was probably a giant ass frog. But it scared me enough to just dip.